It was just after midnight when Daniel, a med student working the night shift at St. Clair's old hospital, realized the hall outside had gone silent. He had been reviewing patient files, his pen scratching faintly across paper, when he noticed the distant hum of machines, the shuffle of nurses, even the occasional cough from the wards. All of it was gone. The silence pressed in like a weight. Curious, Daniel stepped into the corridor. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered, throwing pale light onto the cracked tiles. He felt a draft of cold air, sharp enough to raise goosebumps. The temperature had dropped suddenly, though the radiators groaned with heat. At the far end of the hallway, a door was standing open. He didn't remember it ever being open before. Room 6? That wing of the hospital had been closed for years. Against his better judgment, Daniel walked closer. The corridor seemed longer than usual, as though every step stretched it further. The faint smell of disinfectant mixed with something rotten, something metallic, like dried blood. When he reached the doorway, the air was so cold his breath puffed in front of him. The room beyond was dark, except for a single flickering light above the bed. Sheets, stiff with age, were draped over a figure lying perfectly still. Daniel swallowed. "Hello? Is someone—" The figure moved, not a shift, not a roll. It sat up, stiff and deliberate, pulling the sheet down. What stared at him was not a patient. Its face was pale, bloated, its eyes sunken into black sockets that seemed far too deep. Its mouth sagged unnaturally wide, the jaw unhinging with a brittle crack. A wheezing breath escaped, rattling, though the chest never rose. Daniel stumbled backward. The thing slid off the bed, its bare feet slapping the tile. Each step echoed like a hammer strike, though its movements were slow, unnatural, as though bones ground against each other inside the skin. "Room 6 is never empty," it whispered. The voice was not one, but many, layered, distorted, like dozens of throats speaking in unison. Daniel turned and ran, but the hallway twisted, stretched. Doors lined both sides, each marked with a fading number 6. Behind every one of them, something moved, shadows pacing, hands scratching against glass panes, whispers overlapping into a suffocating roar. He sprinted, heart pounding, until finally he burst into the nurse's station. Everything was normal again. The hum of machines, the chatter of monitors, the distant sounds of life in the hospital. Breathless, he turned to look down the hall. The wing was sealed off once more. Room 6's door was locked tight, as if it had never opened. Daniel forced a laugh, shaking, trying to convince himself it was exhaustion, a trick of the mind. Then he glanced at the patient file he had been holding. His hands froze. The name across the top read, Daniel Carter, Room 6. It was past midnight when Chris pulled his car off the deserted highway. His eyes burned from driving too long, and the neon sign ahead, vacancy, flickered like a dying heartbeat. The motel looked wrong from the start. The parking lot was empty, except for one rusted pickup that seemed to have been sitting there for decades. The lobby smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic like old blood. The man at the desk never smiled. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken, as if he hadn't slept in years. "Room 7, he muttered, pushing a heavy brass key across the counter. Chris walked down the narrow hallway. Every few steps, a fluorescent bulb buzzed and flickered overhead. The carpet was damp, and the wallpaper peeled like scabs. When he reached room 7, he noticed something odd. The door was already unlocked. Inside, the air was icy, though the heater rattled loudly. On the bedside table sat a single glass of water, already half empty. Chris froze. He hadn't been in the room yet. As he lay down, exhaustion pulled him toward sleep. But at 3:17 a.m., the sound of footsteps dragged him awake. Slow, deliberate steps, pacing back and forth in the hallway. He peered through the peephole, but the hallway was empty. Then came the whisper. It slid beneath the door like smoke. "Why are you here?" Chris stumbled back, heart racing. He grabbed his phone. No signal. He rushed to the door, yanked it open, and found nothing. The hallway stretched on, silent and endless. When he turned back, his room wasn't the same. The bed was neatly made again, the glass of water full, and his suitcase gone. On the bedside table was a guest book, open to a page that read, "Room 7, occupied. Chris Thompson, checked in. Tonight, checked out. Pending." And from behind him, the whisper came again, closer this time. "No one leaves room 7. It was almost midnight when Eleanor, a night shift radio host in a small-town station, leaned into the microphone for what she thought would be another quiet hour. The studio was empty, except for the hum of old equipment and the soft static of dead air between songs. Outside, the wind pushed against the thin windows, rattling them like restless fingers. She sipped cold coffee and flipped through the request list. Oddly, the phone lines had been ringing all evening, but every time she answered, she only heard silence, or something that sounded like shallow breathing. Finally, just after 12:17 a.m., a call came through with a voice. A man whispered, "Don't leave, keep talking. He hears you when you stop." Eleanor froze. "Who is this?" she asked, trying to sound calm, her voice echoing in the empty booth. Static hissed. Then the voice again, low and urgent. "He's already inside the building." She glanced through the glass window toward the hallway outside. Dark, empty. Only the faint glow of the exit sign at the far end. She laughed nervously on air, pretending it was a prank. "All right, creepy caller of the night," she joked. "Thanks for the goosebumps." But the man didn't hang up. Instead, a second sound bled through the line, a dragging noise like heavy boots scraping concrete. Slowly, getting closer. Eleanor's pulse raced. She muted her mic and listened. The sound wasn't just on the phone, it was in the hallway. Her breath caught in her throat. She reached for the door lock, but before she touched it, the on-AR light above her flickered, dimmed, then glowed blood red. Another whisper came over the phone, but it wasn't the man anymore. It was a voice that sounded exactly like hers. "Don't look at the window." Heart pounding, Eleanor couldn't resist. She turned her head toward the glass and saw her own reflection staring back. Except it wasn't moving with her. Its mouth was opening wider and wider until the lips tore at the edges. The studio went black. The next morning, the station manager found the booth empty. The microphone was still live, broadcasting faint static, and in the glass window of the studio, there were fingerprints pressed against the inside, longer, sharper, and deeper than human hands could ever make.